The exterminator pulls up in his white truck. He walks the perimeter of your house, slow and professional, with that canister on his back and that clipboard in his hand. He sprays along the baseboards. He checks the crawl space. He leaves a small slip of paper on your door, and he drives away. And you are $800 lighter, or $1,000, or $1,200. Not just this year, every year. Because he will be back next quarter, and the quarter after that. Because the ants will come back in the spring, and the roaches will come back in the summer, and the fleas will come back with the dog in the fall. And round it goes, year after year, that same white truck, that same canister, that same bill. Now I want you to sit with something. There is a powder, a soft, white, chalky powder you can buy at a feed store or a garden center or a hardware store for $2 to $4 a bag. It kills ants, roaches, fleas, bedbugs, silverfish, earwigs, weevils, beetles, centipedes, spider mites, over 100 kinds of crawling pest by the same simple mechanism. It is not a chemical poison. It is a mineral dug from the ground, so safe the government allows it to be mixed directly into grain that human beings eat. And once it is dusted in the right places and kept dry, it keeps working. Not for a week, not for a month, for as long as it sits there. A $4 bag against an $800 a year service. My name is Silas Miller. I am Amish, and I farm land in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, that my grandfather cleared with his own hands. My grandmother kept a bag of this powder in the pantry, a bag in the grain store, and a bag in the chicken coop. My mother kept the same. I have kept the same my entire farming life. Today I'm going to tell you what it is, exactly how it kills, exactly where to put it, the things that make it fail, the one mistake almost everyone makes when they first buy it, and why the company that sends that white truck to your neighbor's house will never, ever tell you it exists. Before I go any further, for those who want everything, every method I have shown on this channel together in one place, I have written it down in a book at silasmiller.com. I will not mention it again. If you want it, it is there. Now let me tell you about the powder. It is called diatomaceous earth. That is a long name for a very simple thing. What it is, in plain language, is a mineral, a soft, chalky white earth mined from certain deposits in the ground, the same way you might mine clay or chalk. When they grind it fine, it becomes a flour-soft powder, light and dusty, that pours through your fingers like talc. You can put your hand straight into the bag. No gloves needed, no burning, no smell. It looks and feels like nothing. To you and me, it is harmless dust. But here is where the marvel begins. Under a magnifying glass, and I mean a good, strong one, the kind a watchmaker would use, those soft white particles are not soft at all. They are tiny, jagged, sharp-edged fragments, each one sharp as broken glass at the scale of a small creature. What is soft as flour to my hand is a field of razor edges to an ant. That is the whole secret of how it kills. When a roach, or an ant, or a flea walks across a thin dusting of this powder, those sharp little fragments scratch through the waxy coating on the outside of its body, the layer that holds the insect's moisture in, the way skin holds ours. Once that coating is cut, the moisture inside the creature begins to leak out. The insect does not get poisoned. It does not get sick in the way a chemical makes it sick. It simply dries out from the outside in and dies within a day or two. And here is the part that ought to make the spray companies nervous. Bugs can build resistance to chemical poisons. The strong ones survive and breed, and over many generations the spray that killed them 10 years ago stops working. That is why the exterminator has to keep coming back with something new every few years. But you cannot build resistance to a sharp edge. An insect cannot grow itself thicker than broken glass. The physics of it do not negotiate, and they never get old. The powder works on the roach that the chemical has stopped killing. It has been working on that roach since 1960, when the government first registered this substance as a pesticide, and it will work on it for the rest of time. Now let me tell you plainly what it works on, because the list is real and it is long, and you should hear all of it. It works on ants. The small ones marching across your kitchen counter. The carpenter ants making a home in your baseboards. The fire ants mounding up beside the porch. It works on cockroaches, both the small German roach and the large American kind. It works on fleas in carpet, in bedding, in the corners where they hide between the dog and the baseboard. It works on bed bugs. And this one matters especially because bed bugs in most American cities have now grown resistant to the chemical sprays. They have not grown resistant to broken glass. Pest control operators themselves have begun recommending this powder for bed bug strains the chemicals cannot touch anymore. That is not something I invented. That is from their own mouths. It works on silverfish in the bathroom, earwigs under the sink, centipedes in the basement, crickets coming in for winter warmth, spider mites on the houseplant, weevils and beetles working through your stored flour and grain. If it crawls, if it has a waxy shell, if it crosses the dust you have laid down, it dies. Not by next morning, but within a few days, slow and certain, the way a good old remedy works. Now here is where I stop, because this is the part where I owe you the truth, and I will not skip it. This powder is not magic. It has real limits, and knowing them is what makes the difference between using it well and giving up on it in frustration. It kills by physical contact. A bug must walk through the dust for it to work. It cannot find them in the wall and hunt them down. It sits and it waits, and it kills what crosses it. On the smaller, softer-bodied insects, ants, fleas, young roaches, silverfish, it works in 1 to 2 days. On the bigger, harder-shelled ones, a large, mature cockroach, a heavy beetle, it takes longer. 3 days, sometimes a week, sometimes more, because there is more shell to scratch through and more body moisture to lose. You will not find a floor covered in dead bugs the next morning. What you will find, over the days that follow, is that fewer and fewer of them are moving. It does not kill eggs. It kills the living insect that hatches and then walks through the powder. For fast-breeding pests, this means you leave it in place for 2 to 3 weeks, long enough to catch multiple hatching cycles. Patience is part of the method. And here is the one that ruins most people's first try. So I will say it plainly and say it slow. Wet powder does nothing. Water, from mopping, from rain, from dew, from high humidity in a closed bathroom, clumps the powder together and blunts those sharp little edges. A wet patch of this powder is a sleeping patch of this powder. It will not kill anything until it dries back out. Every application outdoors must be done when no rain is coming for at least 24 hours. Every application inside must be kept away from moisture. Dry, this powder works forever. Wet, it is just dust. Now, there is one more thing I must tell you before the application section, because getting this wrong is the most common mistake people make. There are 2 grades of diatomaceous earth sold in this country, and they are not the same thing.
Food grade is the one you want. It is the powder, plain, ground fine, nothing added. It is what the organic farmers use on their crops because it leaves no chemical residue. It is what some old-time grain-keepers stir directly into stored wheat to kill the weevils, a cup to every 50 pounds. And the grain is eaten exactly as normal because the powder simply passes through the body. Food grade is what you want in your kitchen, near your children, near your cats and dogs. Pool grade, sometimes called filter grade, looks nearly identical in the bag and costs nearly the same, but it has been heated to a very high temperature that transforms its chemistry. That treatment makes it far more dangerous to breathe, and the bag may contain other chemicals added for the filtering process. Pool grade is for swimming pool filters. It is not for your house. Read the bag before you buy it. Make sure it says food grade. That is the only grade that belongs inside your home or anywhere near your family. Now let me walk you through where to put it, because placement is everything with this method. Get yourself a powder duster, a small plastic squeeze bottle with a long tip, sold right alongside the powder at the feed store or the hardware store for $2 or $3. It lets you puff out a fine, even cloud of powder exactly where you want it, instead of pouring out a clump that sits in one spot and does nothing beyond that spot. A thin, barely visible layer is what works. More is not better. A thick pile just makes the bugs walk around it. Barely visible is the goal. Inside your house, start in the kitchen. Run a fine line along the baseboards in every room, right where the wall meets the floor, which is where almost every crawling pest travels. Behind and under the refrigerator and the stove, which are warm and dark and exactly where roaches spend their days. In the cabinet hinges and the back corners under the sink. Around door frames and window frames where ants come through. If you have access to a wall cavity, an outlet or switch plate you can briefly remove, a small puff inside that wall void stays dry in there forever and works for years without a single reapplication. For fleas, dust lightly into the carpet, especially under furniture and along the edges of the room where the dog rests. Leave it down for 3 to 4 days, then vacuum. Into the seams of the dog's bedding. If you want to put it on the dog itself, speak to your veterinarian first. Some folks do it, but every animal is different, and I would rather you ask someone who knows yours. For bed bugs, dust thinly under the mattress, into the seams of the bed frame, into the joints of the base, along the baseboards of the bedroom. Leave it. Do not rush it. The bugs cross the powder on their nightly rounds and die over the following days. This is the one pest where I hear the most stories of chemicals that stopped working and this powder that did not. Outside, dust lightly along the full length of the foundation, a line right at the base of the house, and you have built a barrier that almost nothing crawling wants to cross. Around the base of garden beds for slugs, along the chicken coop, the rabbit hutch, the kennel. Apply in the morning after the dew has burned off, only when dry weather is coming. After rain, apply again. That is the only ongoing work the outdoor application asks of you. For stored grain, flour, dried beans, this is the old farm trick that most people have forgotten. Stir a small amount of food-grade powder right into your stored grain, about a cup to every 50 pounds,
or a teaspoon or two into a 5-gallon bucket. It coats every kernel with fine dust, and any weevil that tries to feed there crosses the powder and dies. Your grain keeps clean for years instead of months, and you eat it exactly as you always would. The body passes that trace of mineral right through. That is real, that is old, and that is how serious grain keepers have always kept their stores clean. A few honest safety words, and I will not rush through them.
Wear a dust mask when you are puffing this around in a confined space, under a bed, in a closed closet, inside a cabinet. The powder is not a poison. If you swallowed a spoonful by accident, your body would simply pass it. But breathing any fine dust over and over again, day after day, irritates the inside of your lungs. A simple dust mask from the hardware store, the paper kind, $1 apiece, solves that entirely. In a well-ventilated room or outdoors, it is barely a concern. But take the small precaution. Keep it away from places where small children might puff it into the air, not because it will harm them chemically, but because a small child's nose and lungs do not need a faceful of fine dust of any kind. It is gentler on cats and dogs than nearly any other pest control I know, but a heavy application directly on their skin or paws can dry them out. A light dusting only, and keep it out of their eyes. One last honest word, and it is for the gardeners. This powder does not know a useful insect from a pest. Bees, butterflies, beneficial wasps, they are harmed by it the same way a roach is if they contact it directly. In the garden, do not dust the open flowers. Dust the soil around the base of the plant, the paths where the slugs travel, the undersides of leaves where the aphids cluster. The blooms where the bees work are not the target, and the honest farmer protects what he depends on as carefully as he kills what he fights. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters most, and it is bigger than a bag of white powder. Think about what we just walked through. A mineral dug from the ground, no chemistry, costs $4 a bag, kills more than 100 kinds of crawling pest by the same simple physical mechanism, with no resistance possible ever, with no chemical residue, safe enough to use in the kitchen where your family eats, lasts for as long as it stays dry, which is to say, in a wall cavity or under a baseboard, it lasts for years. And on the other side of that fact, an industry. White trucks, monthly contracts, quarterly visits, an entire business built on one very quiet truth. There is no money in a one-time $4 solution. There is enormous money in a monthly subscription. The trucks, the canisters, the door-to-door salesmen, the annual contracts, all of it requires that your pest problem never quite goes away. And the chemical sprays, however good they are, do one thing this powder does not do. They run out. The bottle empties and you go back to the store, or the contract renews and the truck comes back. A powder you dust once and leave, that keeps working while you sleep, cannot pay a salesman's commission. It cannot fund an advertisement. So nobody runs a commercial for it, and nobody knocks on your door to recommend it. And a whole country comes to believe that pest control is something that must be purchased again and again from a man with a canister. My grandmother knew about this powder because her mother showed her. My grandfather kept a bag in the granary because his father had kept one there. The old farmers always knew. The bag has been on that low shelf at the feed store since before any of us were born. Most folks have simply never been told to look for it. You are being told now.
So here's what I want you to do this week. Go to a feed store, a garden center, a farm supply, or the hardware store. Ask for food-grade diatomaceous earth. Read the bag. Make sure it says food grade. Pick up a small plastic powder duster while you are there. Come home, put on a dust mask, and dust a thin, barely visible line along the baseboards of your kitchen, behind the refrigerator, under the stove, around the base of your sink cabinet, into the corners of your basement, along the outside of your foundation if the weather is dry. Then leave it alone. 2 days, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks. The bugs will cross it. They will die. They will not come back to a dusted house the same way they left, because the powder is still there when they try. And when you have done it, come back and tell me in the comments below, which pest has cost you the most money over the years? Ants? Roaches? Fleas? Bedbugs? Silverfish? Tell me which one. And tell me what happened in the 2 weeks after you put the powder down, because the stories you all share teach the next person more than anything I will ever put in a video. I read every single comment on this channel. Every one. Next time, since we have talked today about the insects in the house, I am going to show you the old way my people keep the mice and the rats out of the barn and the grain store. The bucket trap that costs $2 and catches a dozen in a single night. The ceiling tricks my grandfather used. The habits that mean you never have a rodent problem in the first place. It is the natural next step after today, and you will not want to miss it. Until then, find the bag, dust a thin line, keep it dry, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.